Hello everyone. In today's lecture, first we have a review on our scenario. Deliberately, I choose a simple scenario just for better understanding. This could help you to implement more complicated scenarios in your production environment. After that, we would configure ISE together. You may ask yourself and me, are we done after ISE configuration? Absolutely not. We have to configure all components involved in 802.1x, including our PC and a switch in our scenario. But due to Udemy laws for video length, we just configure ISE in this scenario and we leave switch and client configuration for future lectures. Let's jump in. Our scenario. Before I start to explain our scenario, let me answer to a challenging question which may be in your mind. Basically, why should we use 802.1x in our network? It's a good question. If your users could boot up their systems with a special distribution of Linux, which is called Backtrack, and the newer generation of this operating system, Kali Linux, they could intrude your network. It's very, very simple. These distribution of Linux originally developed for penetration testing, but they include very, very dangerous tools. So your users, your authorized users, could use these tools to intrude your network and make a very, very dangerous problems. So what is our defense against these hackers? 802.1x or port-based authentication is one of our guns against them, to stop them and ask them to authorize, and because these operating system could not provide the supplicant information, they could not connect to the network and they couldn't be very dangerous for us. Now let's get back to our scenario. In our scenario, as you remember, in the previous lecture we installed ISE in our server and assigned 192.168.1.10 as its IP address. So as you see, we have a very, very simple scenario. We have a switch, we have a PC, and we have a server. All of them are in the same VLAN. So for basic connectivity between switch and ISE server, switch have to have an IP address. So we assign 192.168.1.40 for the switch and 192.168.1.30 for our client. Let's start our configuration on ISE. ISE configuration. For basic configuration of ISE for port-based authentication, there are 3 steps. First of all, we have to create device group. After that, a network device and assign it to the group which is defined in the previous step. And finally, create a username at ISE local database. To create network device group, we are going to administration menu and select network device groups. In this window, we expand the groups tree and select all locations and click add in the right pane. We should choose a name for our group and we call it Udemy class and click submit. We're done our first step. Let's go to the second one. As you remember, the second step is to create a network device and assign it to this network device group which we created here. So to add a network device, again we choose administration and click network devices in network resources area. Here we click add and we name our switch SW1. SW, let me type it in capital letter. And here we provide the IP address our switch, which was 192.168.140. Okay. We could provide other parameters, but they are not necessary. And here in the location, we select the location which we created it in the previous step. Okay. For enabling authentication in ISE for this device, we should click here in Authentication setting. As you see, the protocol could be only radius, and we have to provide a password for connection between ISE and the switch. Please remember this password because we have to configure this in the switch too. So I click here and say, I have to enable this first, and now click my password Udemy @123 for better memorizing, and click submit. The second step is done too. Let's do our final step, which is defining a local user database. As I mentioned in the previous lectures, the identity source could be a local database in ISE or could be external identity sources like Active Directory or any directory service from other vendors. But in our scenario, we just want to use the local user database. So for creating a user, you're going to administration, and in identity management area, we select identities. And here in network access users, we click add, and our username may be Udemy. I provide the password here and I name it Patrice @123 with P in uppercase. Patrice @123. Patrice @123. Okay, I click next and the user is created. Okay, we are done. All configuration which is needed in ISE side is as simple as you see. Let's wrap up. In this lecture, first we had a review on our scenario and I answered a challenging question which may be in your mind. And after that, we made our ISE side configuration. As I mentioned before, our configuration on switch and client would be in the future lectures. Please be with me. I hope this has been informative for you and I'd like to thank you for viewing.